I'm having a bit of a crisis, can you tell? And this van is coming past, windows down, the guy sticks his head out like a dog. I was just in constant agony. The minute the pain relief wore off, I was like screaming, writhing around in pain. Like, why did you have to kill the bird? I almost needed to have a rebirth of like this person who isn't their illness but has an illness. I'm holding this random nurse's hand and my mum's hand. I'm screaming as these people are taking a chunk of my liver, and you can't have that mentality all the time because it'll ruin you. This is my story of how I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Welcome back to A Conversation with Erin, with me, Erin, our safe space to have a little bit of a chat. Has anyone felt recently absolutely exhausted? I don't know whether it's the full moon energy, but I have felt drained, like so drained, it's actually unbelievable. Like I feel like I can't do anything. I'm absolutely exhausted, and so unnecessarily as well. Like I don't even really do anything to use an excuse that I'm tired because I've been busy. Like I've been busy making videos, which obviously does take a lot of brain power, but my body shouldn't be feeling as exhausted as it is. And maybe it's fatigue, but I don't know. There's something fishy going on in the air. I don't know what it is. Don't know whether it's the full moon, whether it's something bigger, the aliens come in. I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's this weird fishy energy that is making me tired. And I'm not blaming myself, and I'm not blaming my body. I'm blaming everything else but me being lazy. It's not that I'm lazy. There's something going on. But how are you anyway? I feel like I just moaned for a minute about how tired I've been, but I promise I'm going to bring the energy for this episode. I hope you're all doing great and you enjoyed last episode. I know I promised that I was going to be doing mini episodes this week and going forward. However, I've lost my memory card reader. It has vanished in thin air. I don't know where it's gone, but I obviously cannot edit until I order one. So I'm going to order one tonight and hopefully get it on Prime. So you will get an episode this Friday. But it means that the mini episode will have to wait until next week. So apologies for that. What has been going on in the world this week? Twitter's now become X. What does this mean, please? I'm really confused. Like, I'm not really a Twitter person. Like, I'm the kind of girl that sometimes goes on Twitter for my news, then sees nuclear weapons trending, so deletes Twitter so I can have a panic attack. Like, that's me. I'm not a massive Twitter girly. I'll check in on it every day, but I'm not like a Twitter. I've never really been a Twitter girl. I'm obviously an Instagram girl. Like, you can tell just by looking at me, you're like, oh, she's an Instagram. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't look like a Twitter girl. I'm not cool enough for that. I've seen that Twitter's now X. My birdie's still there. My birdie hasn't changed. I don't want to lose him. I love him. He's cute. It's a nice little pop of colour on my home screen. So I don't really know what's going on with that. Like, what does it mean? I know Elon Musk has taken over, and I know that now you can only look at a limited tweets in a day, I think. But I'm so scared to update my phone because Elon Musk scares me, and him taking over the app scares me because I'm like, what does that mean? I know it doesn't make it any more like dangerous or scary, but the thought of it looking like an X logo is very like masculine and just like not a birdie vibing. Like, why did you have to kill the bird? I never trust anyone that is okay with hurting animals, and in my opinion, whether it's a real bird or a virtual bird, you've killed a bird. I don't understand. Is it now not Twitter? I don't get it. I'm very confused by the whole thing. When I was really mentally ill last year, my therapist and my parents made me delete Twitter because of what it was doing to my mental health. I'm really getting itchy feet with life now. I know I just said like I'm exhausted, but I think it's because my days are like exactly the same. So I'm still applying for jobs. I'm still unemployed. I've literally applied for I've applied for hundreds. Nobody wants me. I don't know why, but I'm getting itchy feet. Like, I want to move out. Mum and Dad, I love you, but I want to move out. Like, I don't want to move far away from home. That's not what I want, because that's what I did last time, and that's where I went wrong. Moving to York is where I went wrong. But I enjoyed the living on my own part. I enjoyed my own space. I enjoyed being in my own routine. I feel very tied to my mum and dad's routine now I'm at home, and that's nothing to do with them. It's to do with me. But like, my evening routine is very much based on theirs, and because I don't really have many friends and I don't have a boyfriend, so my life is kind of centered around my parents, which it should be the other way around, and it's so heartbreaking. So if anybody ever wants to become my boyfriend or become my friend to give me more of a life, that would be great. But I just don't really feel like I have much freedom, even though I do. I feel very tied to my parents, and I'm like, I feel like I wouldn't have that if I moved out. I don't know. I know the grass isn't always greener, and I would never be able to afford to move out. Even when I do start working full time, I won't be able to afford to move out. Like, it's so expensive just for food, let alone food and rent and all the rest. Like, 21 is such a weird age though, isn't it? Because I've got like people from school that are engaged. There's people from school that are like having children or have multiple children or live on their own or are still in the same job that they were in when we were all 16. I've got, like, it's just bizarre. Like, people are in the same relationship, or they've broke up from people, or they've got with people who were in friendship groups but like they weren't together at the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so weird. It's such a weird age to be. You want to use other people as a guide, but you can't really, because everybody is so different. And obviously that is a good thing, because it means that we get to be like independent and free beings, and we don't have to compare. But I think as human beings we love comparison, and to have very extremes of where you are to compare yourself to, it doesn't do good. Like, I'm like, I need to be doing more. Like, I'm not even employed. I've left uni and I'm not employed. Like, I don't know. It's weird. It's so weird. This is such a weird age to be. I feel very like I don't know my place in the world. I don't know my place, like, even in the family. I'm having a bit of a crisis, can you tell? So yeah, it's all very weird at the minute, which I don't think is helping my brain, because I think that's also why I'm so tired, is because I'm thinking so much about this but not doing anything, apart from like obviously applying for jobs. I'm not really doing anything to like combat that overthinking, because that's all I can do is think, and that's not always a good thing. Do you know what come into my mind the other day? How much I hate men. No, I'm joking. It come into my mind today. I hate men and I hate dog walkers, and those two things combined are the worst sort of thing. Don't hate all men, just some men. Just to clarify. So if you don't have a dog, you won't understand how much other dog walkers are the bane of your life. I hate them. Not all of them. Again, not all, just some. So I was walking Albie this morning, and I thought, right, we'll go on a bit of a different walk, change of scenery for him and me. I also try not to keep too much of a routine with his walks, because it's dangerous for both me and him. People do steal dogs, and if they know your pattern of like walking at the same time or in the same place, that is easier for them to grab, even though they wouldn't get much from Albie. He's terrified of everything and doesn't have any balls, so good luck with him. You didn't need that backstory, but you got it anyway. So I try not to walk in the same places or like the same time. Anyway, so we went on a bit of a different walk today, and we turned down to walk down these stairs. Now, Albie was on a lead because we were near a main road, but also I have Albie on a lead because his recall isn't 100% with me, so I wouldn't feel comfortable having him off lead. He doesn't listen to me as much as he listens to my mum, for example. It's really affirming for your dog to be like that. It's great, but also he can be slightly reactive to other dogs when he's with me, because I think he feels more protective of me. I think he's very aware that when he's walking with my dad, he's less vulnerable to when he's walking with me, especially black dogs. Don't know why he's got this thing with black dogs, specifically black greyhounds. Hates black greyhounds, but black dogs he's very much more wary of. He's normally not really reactive at all, but he can be at times. So I was walking down these steps and I didn't see this person walk up them because they weren't walking up at the time. But as I turned down, they walk up. So I'm on the steps. Yet he's just keeping on walking. He's got his head in his phone. His dog is on a lead, but it's a black lab, which fortunately Albie's normally fine with black labs, but still. And he's walking up. The dog isn't like pulled in tight. It's just walking on a lead. But he's not aware the fact that me and Albie are there. And I'm like, what do I do here? Do I say excuse me, or do me and Albie just walk to the side? So me and Albie had to stand on this grassy, muddy verge by the main road to let this guy walk past. He looked up at me, rolled his eyes and carried on walking. Who do you think you are, hon? Say thank you for me walking outside of your way. But so like, there was just no awareness, the fact that we were there. The dog doesn't even really matter, it's just rude. There was a slight gap for us to walk past, but we'd have had to squeeze past. And I don't know, his dog's on a lead. I don't want to take Albie into his dog's space if his dog is really reactive. So I was just like, so bloody rude. Like, so rude, just lacks no awareness. And you'd be surprised how many dog walkers just don't have any awareness to anything or anyone or other dogs on leads, off leads, whatever. So there was that, which really annoyed me, as you can tell, because I was just like, it's just rude. Like, I stepped out of your way, whether I didn't have a choice, and you couldn't even give me the decency to smile at me, let alone say thank you. So we carried on walking, and I do think I made a comment to him like, you're welcome, or I love doing that. I'm such a Karen when it comes to that. So we carried on our walk, and then we were walking home, had a really lovely walk. He was really well behaved. I enjoyed myself. And then we're walking and this van is coming past. Windows down. The guy sticks his head out like a dog. Stick your tongue in, mate. Put your head back in. It could get hit. Have you seen Hereditary? I'd never have my head out hanging out a car after seeing that. So be careful. Had his head stuck out the van watching me. And then he winked at me. Smiled. And like went... And then, what did he say? He said something and then just carried on watching me. Just like, what? You should have seen me on the dog walk. So if you think I look rough now with very minimal makeup and frizzy hair, I hadn't even straightened my hair, but I hadn't put any product in it. So my hair was literally, I looked like Hagrid. I was in my dad's waterproof jacket because it was raining. I was in dirty pink joggers. I looked terrible. So he needs to raise his stand. Well, no, because to be fair, I'm above him even when I look like that. But yeah, afterwards I was like, men. Even Albie looked at me like, what was he doing? Just like, oh, men. Oh, like it was just so unnecessary. So unnecessary. So after that encounter this morning, I've decided I don't like men or dog walkers. Well, I do like men, but not those sorts of men. Stop hanging out your van like a dog. You're not a dog, you're a man. But anyway, enough of me rambling at you. Let's get on to today's topic. Just a quick note. I know that you hate when people do this. I'm not a massive fan of it either, but 90% of you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, and I know a lot of you aren't following on Spotify. So please subscribe for me. It will mean the world. And follow on Spotify if you'd rather listen audibly, something like that. Audibly. I also have a TikTok and an Instagram for the podcast. The TikTok is A Conversation with Erin and the Instagram is Conversation with Erin. So make sure you check them out because I'm always posting clips, and I actually posted on my stories on Instagram the other day. I cringed so hard at myself. So make sure you check that out. Yeah, carry on with the episode. I've been very unsure as whether to do this or not, just because I don't want to sound like a broken record, and I know I've never really spoken about it properly on the podcast before, but I have made YouTube videos about it and Instagram posts, and TikToks because it is a massive part of my life. I never want it to become me. I never want it to become what I'm known for or my brand. But it is a large part of my everyday life, and it takes up a lot of my space, and it's something that's happened to me that's very, very unexpected. And I know that lots of people, and even more people, I think the rates of people being diagnosed with this is just going up. I want to raise awareness for it and share my experience, because I know how nice it is when I find somebody talking about it and can relate to them. This will probably have to be multiple parts because there's so much has happened. I'm going to kind of give you an overview of the whole thing, well, the beginning part anyway. This is my story of how I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. So we're going to have to go on a little journey back. The year was 2018 and it was February and it had been snowing. I was getting cramping, but I was a secret ab workout queen. I would be doing crunches in my bedroom, doing Lily Sudbury, and this was before Lily Tongue. Is it Lily Tongue? No. Lily... Oh my god, what's her name? The lockdown girl that gave everyone eating disorders. Chloe Ting. Weren't even Lily Tongue. What an idiot. Anyway, so I'd been doing ab workouts in my bedroom, and I thought I'd pulled a muscle because I was getting this cramping in my abdomen. It's important to note that before this point I had no health concerns whatsoever. The only time I'd ever been in hospital overnight was when my bone come out my arm. That's another story. We have no history in our family of illnesses from young people. The only people in my family that were ever ill were elderly, so it was age related. The New Year's Eve before this, I had randomly had diarrhea. Now I remember this because all my friends were coming around for a New Year's Eve party, and I found it really weird because I was like, oh my god, my friends can't come around, and mum and dad were like, you've just had a dodgy poo, you'll be fine. But this happened throughout that year. The year prior, I'd have random days of just having a really diarrhea poo for no reason, which was very unusual to what I had been used to. And then prior to this abdomen pain, a couple of weeks prior, I had a bout of constipation and then a little bit of diarrhea, and we went to the doctors, and he had just said to me we'll send you a stool sample in the post, it's probably nothing, but just in case. We were never concerned, it wasn't a massive deal, it was just a bit unusual. So then I started to get this cramping. It was just, it did feel a bit like I'd pulled a muscle. I just felt very ill, very drained, and I had this pain. That night, I was really unwell. I just felt really, really ill, and I was in a lot of pain. My mum and dad were like, look, just go to bed, go to bed with a hot water bottle. You'll probably be fine in the morning. I then woke them up that night in the middle of the night, and I was in agony. I thought I was going to be sick. I was just in so much pain. So they were like, right, let's take you to A&E. Bear in mind, we'd only ever been to A&E when I was having my issues with my nerve damage in my arm. So, I could tell that they thought I really wasn't well. I had been booked in for a blood test for a few weeks, so they obviously did my bloods in A&E. First time I ever had a blood test, I was so scared. I remember just being terrified, but I was in so much pain. I was like, do anything you want to me. And then we were just waiting in A&E for ages, and then they took me into one of the side rooms, felt my stomach, and they were like, it feels a bit tender, but she should be fine. We walked down to I think it was a short stay unit, and then I was like, I'm gonna be sick. And then I was very ill, just the one time. I'm trying to not be too graphic because I know it can be quite triggering, but it was fine. They obviously cleaned it up, and I felt so much better. I felt really well. So the doctor come around and was like, look, all your tests are fine. We're going to have to do a ultrasound to make sure it's not appendicitis, but we think it's either that or a virus. you can stay overnight or you can go home. Because I felt better, I was like, well, I'm going to go home because I am 15 and I don't want to be staying in this hospital without my mum, because I was considered an adult, which I don't agree with. I was so little. I don't think 15-year-olds should be considered an adult, because you get treated like an adult. And the care between, I'm not saying the care's any less, but the care between a child unit and an adult unit is so different. So we went home ready to come back the next day for the ultrasound, and then I went home and slept. Woke up, mum gave me some toast, and then I have never experienced pain like this. Like, I was screaming, I was writhing around in agony. It was just horrendous, and I've had like severe nerve damage in my arm. Like, it just didn't meet up to that. I walked out the hospital on that first day. Coming back into the hospital, I couldn't walk. My mum and dad had to bring out a wheelchair for me. Literally overnight, I deteriorated so much. They couldn't find anything on the ultrasound, so they said, like, it's just a virus. We'll send you home with codeine to manage the pain. Mum found in her notes the other day, it was literally every 2 hours I was being given some other some medication, like alternating between paracetamol and codeine, because I was just in constant agony. The minute the pain relief wore off, I was like screaming, writhing around in pain. This went on for 2 weeks, and I don't really remember these 2 weeks. I couldn't be left alone. So when my mum or dad went back to work, like, it was alternating between family members to come around and sit with me. So over those 2 weeks, I lost 2 stone because I just couldn't eat. I was in agony. I could barely drink. It was really quite a scary time, but we just thought it's a virus, that we'll wait it out, she'll be fine. I'm not sure how long it was after this. I think I'd gotten constipated because I wasn't eating a lot, and I was only eating white foods. But then all of a sudden, I obviously started eating normally again. I just had constant diarrhea. I couldn't keep any food in me. So we went to the doctors, because he'd asked to see me because of going in prior to my hospital stay. And he weighed me and he looked at me, because I looked poor, like, I looked gaunt. Like, when after those 2 weeks, obviously I wasted away, like, all my muscle had wasted. Mum and dad were like, right, let's go to the shops. I couldn't stand for longer than a few minutes. I'd have to sit down. When I went back to work, I had to sit down behind the till. I just lost any sort of stamina in me. So he saw me and he was like, right, that's not good. I think he said, we'll see how you go, come back in like a week or so, something like that. Or he might have put me in for some more blood tests, something. It wasn't like instant though. He was just like, this is concerning. So like the next week, I had a university fair thing with my friends, and we just kind of used it as an excuse to get the coach to like a shopping centre and go shopping and have takeaways and just like have fun. We all went to KFC, and I had my first takeaway since it all happened. I weren't even then a frequent takeaway eater. It was very much like I'd have it every now and then. And I remember thinking, I don't feel right. Like, I'm in quite a lot of pain. I literally rushed home. Like, once we got the coach home, I rushed home and went to the toilet, and it was just blood. And I remember sitting there, I was shaking, because it's really, you might not realise, but when you pass blood, it's really quite painful. It hurts really, like, it hurts internally. I go quite pale, I shake, I feel quite sick. It's hard to explain that feeling, but it feels very, very different to just having diarrhea. I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, I'm dying. I'm dying. So I phoned my mum crying. She was like, you're okay. We will book a doctor's appointment, because this was a Friday. So we'll book a doctor's appointment on Monday and it'll be urgent. And I had friends coming around that evening, so we had like sweets and stuff, and I remember just having to keep on going to the toilet, but I was too embarrassed to say anything. On Monday we phoned the doctors, we got an urgent appointment, and I told him what had happened, because it had kind of gotten a bit worse over the weekend. And he gave me a stool sample to do that day, and I submitted it. And then we went back for another appointment with him, and he was like, yeah, this is bowel disease. I'm pretty sure it's colitis. It might be Crohn's. I'm not sure. He said, but this ain't good. He says, I'm going to refer you to a gastroenterology department at my local hospital. What we didn't realise at the time is this referral was going to take months. Like literally months. So I got my letter through from the gastroenterology department, and it said it was, I think, 6 to 8 months time that my appointment was going to be. By this time my stomach had gotten really bad. I was going to the toilet like 8 to 10 times a day. It would frequently get worse and more bloody. There was so much urgency, which meant that I couldn't not go. If I needed to go, I had to go, and I had less than a minute to get myself on a toilet, so I didn't really have much control. There was a lot of mucus. It was just horrendous, and I had no idea what was going on with my body. Mum had done some research, and we found out about, because I'd been told it was most likely colitis, we'd done quite a lot of research into what ulcerative colitis was like and what Crohn's disease is like, because they're both bowel disease. It was a very scary, uncertain time, and it was the realization of, this is going to be I'm going to be debilitated for months, and I'm going to be in pain for months, and I'm going to be malnourished for months. Like, there was no support in place for the meantime. There was nothing to help me. There was no monitoring. It was kind of like, just get on with it until your appointment. That wasn't said by my GP, but there wasn't a lot he could do. So the symptoms I was experiencing was fatigue, obviously urgency. So like, I had to go to the toilet. Like, I didn't have a choice of whether I was going to go for a poo or not. Mucus in my poo. Obviously, I'd have bloody stools and just blood. I'd just pass blood. No solid stools whatsoever. Loose stools. Extreme severe bloating. Cramping. Yeah, those are kind of my main symptoms. That was going to be 6 to 8 months for me to get a letter to tell me I had an appointment, and then on top of that it would be about 6 to 8 weeks until the appointment actually was. So it was going to be nearly a year until I could get seen by somebody, which obviously it was just devastating. Like, I was just absolutely heartbroken. Like, it was really difficult. It was kind of like, it just felt very, I wasn't sure what to do. I think I kind of just went into autopilot. It's really hard for me to recall. So I think I kind of was just like, just get through it. Just get yourself through it. Like, there's not a lot you can do, so just push through. I wasn't having really any more monitoring or support during this time from anyone, so I was just getting sicker and weaker. My bowel was becoming more scarred and ulcerated. So my immune system attacks my bowel because it thinks that it's like not part of me, so it works too hard. So I take medication to suppress my immune system, because when it attacks my bowel, it means that my bowel becomes ulcerated, which then creates the mucus, and then because it's ulcerated, it becomes bloody and sore, and then basically like eats and attacks itself. So yeah, so it means that you don't really, because it works so quickly, you don't really keep in any food, you don't take any nutrients in, and you just kind of need to get rid of it as soon as possible, because it just doesn't work properly. So my immune system basically shuts down my bowel. Long and short of it, I remember during this time of waiting, like, I become quite anxious if I didn't know there was going to be a toilet. I know that Crohn's and Colitis UK is a charity. You can sign up and get like a can't wait card and a key. So it basically means that you show this card into certain places and they let you use their staff toilets, or if you're in a queue of people, you can show them the card and go, I can't wait, can I go in front of you? And you can go in. They also give you a master key for disabled toilets. I've used disabled toilets because this is a hidden disability and it's really quite traumatic to go to the toilet when you're in a flare in a public bathroom. So just having that slight more privacy of a disabled toilet is really, really important. But obviously, when you look healthy, you don't always get allowed in. So the key helps you get in as well, because most of the time you've got to find somebody to let you into a disabled toilet because they're locked, and that people aren't always that easy to find. But I've also found the key doesn't really work for many places, but I think my mum got it for me as like you're fine, like let's have days out. And we went to Westfield, and I remember I hadn't eaten before I went because I was scared of needing the toilet, and I didn't eat the whole day. And we were walking around looking for restaurants and somewhere to eat, but I was eating completely plain food at this time. I was eating as if I had a stomach bug because I couldn't eat any fibre at all. And by eating just the plain foods, I was reducing my poos to 5 times a day instead of 10. I was really struggling to find food, and I ended up having a panic attack in Westfield because I just think at that point I was just so done. Like, I was so sick and tired of watching every single thing I ate, of going to the toilet constantly. My body was so exhausted. I was mentally so exhausted, and I couldn't even enjoy a simple day out shopping with my mum. The good thing about this day is I did see Pete Wicks, not to say hello, but he walked past with a girl, and he smelled unbelievable. Like, he smelled really nice. So I'll give that to him. He was actually quite attractive in person. Smaller than what I thought he was going to be though. But he was attractive and smelled nice. But anyway, there's been a few days out like that where I've been in a flare, or before I was on meds, and I just felt so out of control of my body. It meant that I had a panic attack because I was so scared of having to use a public bathroom to go for like a poo when it's not just like a poo. Do you know what I mean? So my mum would constantly be on the phone with my GP. My GP would constantly be emailing the hospital because I was put in through as an urgent. So I was an urgent case, and it was still going to be 6 to 8 months. And obviously in this time I was just getting more sick. So my mum and my GP were relentless in trying to get me an appointment. And luckily a cancellation come up. Literally it was like a miracle. And my mum phoned me when I was at school and said, there's been a cancellation, you've got an appointment in a month. Or it might have even been less than a month. Like, it was pretty instant. And I like burst into tears. My mum was crying, I was crying. Like, I was so happy because it meant that, like, okay, I'm gonna get better. I'm so grateful that I had a GP that listened to me and a mum that was so forceful in getting me help, because I don't know, I think I would have potentially lost my bowel, even if it was for a short period. Like, I was very, very poorly. We went to the appointment, and the first appointment was very much a lot of talking, sharing my symptoms. I had to do like a wee sample and a poo sample, and it was him like feeling my stomach, just kind of getting a picture of what's going on. It was very much agreed that, like, yeah, it was definitely a bowel disease. It was just, what one is it going to be? Luck of the draw. He said to me that I was going to need a colonoscopy, an MRI, a liver biopsy. Well, no, a liver biopsy to be confirmed. Like, we weren't 100% sure. Hopefully the colonoscopy would tell us the most things. So a couple of weeks later I was booked in for the colonoscopy. Now, the worst part about the colonoscopy was the prep. I respond really well to sedation, and I was sedated, so I was still awake, but I wasn't really aware of what was going on. And at points when it felt more painful, when they were taking some of the biopsies, they just gave me more meds, basically. If you don't know what a colonoscopy is, it's where there's a camera that goes basically up your bum all the way through your bowel. It's very different to an endoscopy. Is it an endoscopy that goes down your throat? Yeah, and a colonoscopy goes up your bum. And it goes just all around your large bowel and takes little biopsies as it's going around to be able to sample, which then by the sample they take, they'll be able to tell if I had colitis or Crohn's. Because you can't eat because you have to have a clear bowel. So you have to drink this drink, and it's a weird flavour. It's not very nice, but you have to drink it, and it's basically a laxative. And my poo then become white, like clear. My poo then become like wee. It's very, very, very weird, and it does make your bum quite sore. Like, I'll be honest, like it was sore. But The clear poo means that your bowel is completely clear, so they can get a clear view of all the issues going on in your bowel, if there is any. Said lots of clear then, didn't I? Clear. So my mum took me to that, and she wasn't obviously allowed in with me or anything, and she wasn't allowed in recovery. But the sedation made me cry quite a lot. Like, I respond really well to sedation, but I was just very, very emotional. So they called my mum in to like try and calm me down. But then it was like I was having biscuits because I was starving, and we got called into a room. This is all a bit blurry because I was still quite high as a kite at this point. I got told that I was going to have to go on steroids, prednisone, and I was going to have to go on quite a high dose because of the damage to my bowel. They thought from the images that it was colitis, but the biopsies would confirm. And I started on 40 milligrams of prednisone, and that was to start like that day. I got told that it could make me quite hungry, I could possibly gain some weight, I might have a more round face. I think they were sugarcoating the symptoms a lot. Prednisone is probably the hardest, worst drug I've been on for my illness. It's very intense, it's just brutal. So I gained quite a lot of weight on it. It worked instantly, but it's because it's so brutal. I had such a round moon face. I'll insert a photo here for viewers of the podcast. Yeah, that took over a year to go down, and it was just very, very, very intense. Like, the hunger was like nothing I've ever experienced. Like, I was just never full. My mum said it was like feeding like a group of teenage boys. I just didn't sleep. I'd go to bed at 2 and wake up at 6 and be bouncing. Like, I just didn't ever need to sleep. Like, I think a lot of people don't like the insomnia. I found it okay because I didn't try and fight it. I just like accepted it. I went to an appointment to find out my results, and it turns out I actually had Crohn's disease, which I think was a shock to us all, but it's a bowel disease. Like, I was kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. At this point, I was having to have blood tests every 4 weeks, I think. Or was it? Yeah, it was every 4 weeks. Now I only have to have them every 8 weeks. So I had to have blood tests every 4 weeks because of the prednisone, but also my liver markers were up. Now I know this is very common and can mean loads of things. So if you have a slight infection, your liver markers might go up, but also if you have a terminal illness, your liver markers will go up. So it can mean anything. Now they were slightly concerned, very concerned as to why my liver marker was so high. I think it was because of how long I was going untreated for, but they wanted to investigate any option, and they thought I had autoimmune hepatitis. So this meant that the only way to investigate that would be a liver biopsy. This is probably the worst part of that period. So this was a couple of weeks later. I didn't have to do any prep for this, and I don't think I expected it to be as bad as it was. Now, I'm not trying to put anyone off, and I'm trying to be as real as possible, which is why I said the colonoscopy was fine, because it was so fine. Like, there was no reason for me to be nervous. Like, if I get told I have to have another one, I will not be scared. Like, the part I'll dread the most is the prep. So the liver biopsy, I just think they made a complete balls up of it. I got wheeled, like, I could walk, but someone got sent up with a wheelchair, and I wasn't allowed to walk down to the down to the room. So this guy wheeled me down, and he didn't talk to me, so it was all a bit awkward because I was so capable of just walking down. There was so many people in the room. I'd say there's 15 people in this small room. There didn't need to be that many. And I wasn't even given the option. Like, I'm sure they were probably junior doctors or trainees or whatever. Like, I'm sure they were supposed to be there, but there was a lot of people that didn't need to be there, and they were just watching me. It was very weird. I wasn't told what was going on, and if you've ever had local anaesthetic, you'll know it's very painful. They said, right, we're going to put the local anaesthetic in, it's going to really sting, and it did really hurt because it was obviously over my ribs where my liver would be. You know, normally if you have local, you leave it a good few minutes for it to sink in and numb the area, especially numb internally if they were going all the way into my liver. They didn't. Straight away they cut me open. So I felt them like cut into my flesh. It was honestly, it's like, I laugh at it, but it makes me feel a bit like, I get flashbacks sometimes to it. It was horrible. So I'm there, like, I'm holding this random nurse's hand and my mum's hand. I'm screaming as these people are taking a chunk of my liver out of my body while I can still feel it all. Like, I could feel the whole thing. I was numb afterwards, but I wasn't numb while they were doing it. Only lasted a few minutes. It was over very quickly, but it was very, like, it was quite traumatic. It's the most traumatic thing I think I've been through in terms of all my appointments. Because I'm considered an adult at 16, I was pulled around to recovery, and I wasn't allowed anyone with me. It was just me, and that was quite chill actually. Like, I felt fine because I only had local anaesthetic and that was wearing in. I didn't need to be on, I didn't have a cannula in, like, I didn't need anything like that. So I was just sat there, like, watching Netflix, eating biscuits, rank biscuits as well. He brought me around biscuits and they only had Garibaldi's. Now, I don't mind a Garibaldi, but these aren't like proper Garibaldi's, like, you know, in the packets, and they're round and they're not as nice as Garibaldi's. They're just like fruit biscuits. They're like go-aheads. They're the only biscuits he gave me. So I was sad because after I come up with colonoscopy, I had the whole biscuit barrel and there were bourbons in there. There were custard creams. All the good biscuits you can think of, I had. So I was expecting that treatment. I didn't get it. I had to be in recovery for a few hours just to make sure I didn't have any internal bleeding. And then I got sent home and I was very, very sore for a few days. I had to be very careful. I couldn't do any like vigorous activity for a few weeks. But then I recovered and they found out I didn't have autoimmune hepatitis. So that was a really good thing. It was a bit frustrating because I've been through that for nothing. But this week, what I haven't told you is in this week I had like 3 appointments. So I had the day before my liver biopsy is when I found out I had Crohn's disease. And then I had my liver biopsy. And then 2 days later I had my MRI. Now since then I have had a small bowel MRI. And I know for a fact that they did my small bowel MRI completely wrong. Like, completely wrong. So they said, so I needed an MRI to check my small bowel because you can't obviously shove a camera up your small bowel. When I've had my small bowel MRI since then, that you have to drink a prep, you're in there for a few hours, you get cannulated, they put dye in you. It's a whole ordeal. This one, I laid in an MRI scanner for 15 minutes and then was done. Like, it was so bad, like it was done terribly. They phoned my mum when we left. They're like, oh, we haven't done it right. You need to bring her back. My mum's like, she's at school and I'm now at work in a meeting. That's not going to happen. And they were like, okay, we'll send you an invite in the post to have it done again. That never come. So that appointment was, again, really pointless. After my liver biopsy, I was allowed to start azathioprine, which is an immunosuppressant. So that basically slows down my immune system so it works slower than what it should, which means I'm more vulnerable to infections, which is why during COVID I was high risk and couldn't leave my house. But it also means that my bowel doesn't eat itself, so it's great. And I didn't really have any side effects to azathioprine. It made my hair fall out a little bit, but apart from that, I was doing great. I've had periods on it where I felt a bit nauseous, so now I just take it at night because I find that if it's at night, I know for a fact it's not going to make me feel nauseous. Like, the nausea isn't that bad. I wake up in the night feeling sick. That was like the start of my proper long-term meds because prednisone I was going to come off. So I don't think at this point I'd started tapering it down, but then after a month I was allowed to come off 1 tablet a week. But the tablets were only 5 milligrams. So it was like 2 months of slowly tapering off as prednisone. And at this point, I'd gained quite a lot of weight. My face was quite round. And I found coming off of them, I had quite bad withdrawals. Not physically, but mentally. I've never felt so depressed. And I've really suffered with my mental health. But this is a depression not like I felt before. It did feel like a chemical imbalance. The depression I felt before, like more recently, it's been very, very mood orientated and Therapy's helped, and talking through and feeling my emotions has helped. This was just like my brain was just fried. I can't explain it. I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't even feel anything. I was so numb and low. But I think I have heard that people who have been on prednisone do have those experiences. Not suicidal ideation, but just very, very dark, depressive thoughts and behaviours. I think the worst part of it all for me was when all the appointments stopped. So when I was coming off the pred and when I was on ASA and the ASA was working and my body seemed to stabilise, all I ever needed was the frequent blood tests. So I went from having an appointment every couple of weeks and having lots of investigation going on to nothing. Everything went still. And I'd almost felt like I'd been caught up in this hamster wheel going round and 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 round. And then all of a sudden the wheel stopped. And I was there to sit and with my thoughts and realise what had been going on for me the last 6 months. And that was probably one of the lowest points, because I was like, I'm never going to be well again. I went through grief. I grieved the life that I thought I was going to live. I grieved my health. I grieved so much. And it was a really difficult time. Being diagnosed with a chronic illness, knowing that you're never not going to have that, is so hard to put into words how traumatizing it can be. Now I see my illness, I have days where I'm like, why me? Like, why is it my body that doesn't want to work? Why is it me that has to have this? Why me? And obviously there are days like that. But I'm now at a place in my illness where I see a lot of benefits in it. It's taught me so much empathy. It's given me so much knowledge. It's opened my eyes up to the world. It's made me grow up. It's made me more confident. It's made me know how to handle myself in dealing with my healthcare, no matter what that looks like. Now I can go into a doctor's appointment and be very, very honest and brave with them, and I never would have been able to before. And I think as a 21-year-old, I find healthcare professionals are surprised at me. I will sit on the phone with my IBD nurses and I'll be very frank with them. I'll be like, right, I've been going to the toilet this amount of times, this doesn't work for me, this works for me, this is what I need. And I can be very like, I've got a lot of autonomy over my own health and my body now that I never would have had. So it comes with a lot of benefits, but there was a time where I could see none. And it was horrendous. It impacted every part of my life. I become such a shell of who I didn't know who I was anymore. I think I almost needed to have a rebirth of like this person who isn't their illness but has an illness. Whereas I was slowly but surely becoming Crohn's disease, and I didn't like that, and I lost myself completely. I had to realise what I'd been through. I'd been through a hell of a lot for anyone, especially someone who's 16 doing their A-levels. I'd been through so much. A couple of months prior, I'd just lost my granddad. Like, I'd gone through so much difficulty those few months, and then the months after being ill, that I had a lot to process. And it took me a lot, and I think I was very hard on myself at the time of, actually, come on, get a grip. No, be kind to yourself. Allow yourself to feel all, because it's shit. I'm going to be honest. Crohn's disease is shit. All chronic illnesses are shit. But there's a lot of good things with them, and you can't have that mentality all the time because it'll ruin you. It will completely destroy you and destroy your faith and your happiness, and you will never feel happy about anything because you'll always be like, oh, why me? Why not you? brutally honest, why not you? Why am I ill? Why aren't you ill? No. You know what I mean? I was very much like, oh, why me? Why do I have to have this? Who decided I have to have this? The first person in my family to have a chronic illness. The first person in my family to be ill. Why me? Why not you, Erin? It wouldn't be any different if it was anybody else. Nobody deserves it. So why do you think you're better than deserving it? So that's kind of the mentality that I learned to adapt to. I'm still learning I had a lot of learning curves of how to work with my new body. It was like I'd been reborn. I'd been given this new brain and this new body, and I didn't know how to work with it. And it took me a long time to learn. It took a lot of difficulty to learn. And that's where we're leaving this episode, because there's so much more to say, but we'll be going on for hours. There's so much more to talk about. I could go so much more in depth on it all. I went into remission, which is amazing, but I'm now out of remission again, which means I do have active disease in my bowel. Yeah, I could always do a part 2 of like my most recent journey with it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If you have anything that you want to say, please comment down below. The comments are a safe space. I always monitor them. And I hope that you've learned something new. I hope that you can take something from this video. I hope that if you have a bowel disease or a chronic illness, you feel a tiny bit seen and heard. I hope that I've done this topic justice. Like I said, there's so much more I could say. My 3 gratitudes. Number 1 is I am grateful that all my crystals are charged. I charged them all in the full moon yesterday, so I'm grateful that they're all charged. I'm also grateful that my dad brought me Halo Top ice cream. I love Halo Top ice cream. He brought me the cookie dough and he got me some. I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful the treatment that I've had by healthcare professionals. I've only had one bad experience, and when you're almost constantly in touch with healthcare professionals, that is pretty incredible. So thank you, the NHS. Thank you. My one hope for the future is that I'm meant to be going to the lavender fields tomorrow with my niece and my sister-in-law. So I hope that the weather holds off, because it's rained all day today. So that's my hope for the future. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and podcast and whatever else you want to call it. Thank you, and I will see you next week. Goodbye. Just a quick note. I know that you hate when people do this. I'm not a massive fan of it either. But 90% of you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel. And I know a lot of you aren't following on Spotify. So, please subscribe for me. It will mean the world. And follow on Spotify if you'd rather listen audibly, something like that. Audibly. Because I share the audio the same time that I share the video. I also have a TikTok and an Instagram for the podcast. The TikTok is A Conversation with Erin, and the Instagram is Conversation with Erin. So make sure you check them out, because I'm always posting clips, and I actually posted on my stories on Instagram the other day. I cringed so hard at myself. So make sure you check that out. Yeah, carry on with the episode.